The tribunal chamber stretched higher than any cathedral on Earth. Its walls were carved from black stone that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Along these walls, massive pillars rose toward a ceiling lost in shadow. Each pillar was etched with symbols from 1,000 different worlds, marking the judgments passed here over 10,000 years. Commander Helen Burke stood at the center of the chamber floor, her hands clasped behind her back in a military stance. She wore her dress uniform, dark blue with silver insignia, though she knew the uniform meant nothing to the beings who watched her now. Around her stood 12 other humans, diplomats, and officers chosen to represent Earth in this moment. They all looked small in this vast space, like children called before stern parents. Above them, seated on thrones of dark metal that seemed to grow from the walls themselves, sat the dragon judges. They were not dragons as Earth's myths imagined them. They were larger, more terrible, and somehow more beautiful. Their scales caught what little light existed in the chamber and threw it back in colors that had no names in human language. Some were red like flowing lava, others blue like deep ocean water, still others green like forests or silver like moonlight. The largest dragon sat in the center throne. His name was Korath, and his scales were the color of fresh blood mixed with gold. He was 3 times the size of an elephant, with wings folded against his back that could have covered a football field. His eyes were golden and ancient, holding the weight of centuries. When he looked at the humans, it felt like being examined by something that could see straight through flesh and bone to whatever soul might hide inside. Helen had stood before generals and presidents. She had commanded ships in deep space where one mistake meant death for everyone aboard. But standing before Korath made her feel like a child again, small and uncertain. Around the chamber's upper galleries, other aliens watched the proceedings. Some looked like living crystal, refracting light into rainbow patterns. Others were clouds of luminescent gas contained in force fields. There were beings that looked almost human, and others so strange that looking at them too long made Helen's eyes hurt. All of them had come to watch humanity be judged. The prosecution had been speaking for hours. A dragon with emerald scales named Vethrix presented evidence on holographic displays that floated in the air. Human ships crossing into forbidden territories, human mining operations in protected nebulae, human colonies established in neutral zones without proper permission. Each image was damning, each location carefully documented. The humans claim ignorance, Vethrix said, his voice like stones grinding together. They say they did not know these laws. But ignorance is not innocence. A child who touches fire is still burned whether they knew the danger or not. Helen wanted to argue. She wanted to explain that humanity had only reached the stars 60 years ago. They were newcomers to a galaxy full of rules written long before Earth even knew other intelligent life existed. But she held her tongue. There would be time for her defense later. Interrupting now would only make things worse. Among the human delegation stood someone who did not belong. Gregory Walsh was 76 years old, with white hair and a weathered face marked by time and sun. He wore a simple gray suit, not a uniform. He carried no briefcase, no documents, no obvious reason for being here. The other delegates had questioned his presence, but orders from Earth Command had been clear. Gregory Walsh must be included in the delegation. No explanation was provided. Helen had tried speaking with him during the journey to the tribunal. Gregory was polite but quiet, answering questions with few words. He seemed content to sit and watch, his blue eyes taking in everything with a calm that Helen found both comforting and unnerving. There was something about the old man that suggested hidden depths, like still water that might be shallow or might be bottomless. Vethrix finished his presentation. The holographic displays faded. He turned to Korath with a slight bow of his massive head. The evidence is clear, Sovereign. Humanity has violated galactic law repeatedly and without remorse. They expand like a plague, taking what they wish, ignoring boundaries set for the safety of all. Korath's golden eyes swept across the humans below. Commander Burke. His voice rolled through the chamber like distant thunder. You may present your defense. Helen stepped forward. Her heart pounded, but her voice remained steady. She had practiced this speech for weeks, refining every word. Sovereign Korath, honored judges, I come before you not to deny our actions, but to explain them. Yes, humanity has crossed boundaries. Yes, we have established ourselves in territories not officially granted to us, but we ask you to understand why. She activated her own holographic display. Images of Earth appeared, rotating slowly in the darkness of the chamber. The blue planet looked beautiful from space, but Helen's images showed what that beauty concealed. Cities packed so tightly that buildings touched each other, factories belching smoke into gray skies, oceans choked with waste, populations graphs that climbed upward like mountains. "This is our home," Helen said. 12 billion humans live on Earth. We are running out of space, running out of clean water, running out of air that does not burn lungs when breathed. Our children are born into a world where they may never see a wild animal or swim in a clean river. We came to the stars not from greed but from desperation. She showed images of colony ships leaving Earth, families packed into vessels designed to carry them to new worlds. We searched for empty places. We tried to find systems where no one lived, where no one had claims. But the galaxy is old and humanity is young. We did not understand how complex the rules were. How many treaties existed, how many boundaries we could not see. Helen's voice grew more passionate. We made mistakes. We admit this, but we made them while trying to save our species. We made them while parents looked at their children and wondered if those children would have futures worth living. Korath listened without visible emotion. His massive form remained still as stone. When Helen finished, silence filled the chamber for a long moment. Then Korath spoke. "Every species faces challenges, Commander. Every world has its problems. The laws exist to prevent chaos. If every species with difficulties could ignore boundaries, the galaxy would descend into war. Resources would be fought over. Worlds would burn. The order we have maintained for 10,000 years would collapse." His golden eyes seemed to look through Helen rather than at her. "Need does not justify lawlessness. A drowning man who pulls another under to save himself is still a murderer, even if his need was real." Helen felt her hope crumbling. She had expected this response, but hearing it still hurt. She looked back at her delegation. Some stared at the floor. Others showed anger or fear on their faces. Only Gregory remained calm, still watching everything with those quiet blue eyes. "This tribunal will adjourn," Korath announced. "We will consider the evidence presented. Tomorrow we will deliver our verdict. Prepare yourselves." The dragon judges rose from their thrones. Their wings spread, creating wind that pushed against the humans below. One by one, they departed through passages in the chamber walls, passages too large for humans to enter. The watching aliens in the galleries began to disperse as well, some teleporting away in flashes of light, others floating or walking through their own exits. Helen's delegation gathered together. Several of them immediately began talking in worried voices. 200 years, one diplomat muttered. "I heard that is the standard sentence for violation. 200 years confined to Earth. We are finished," another said. "Humanity will be trapped in our own system while the rest of the galaxy moves on without us." Helen tried to calm them, but her own heart felt heavy. She had done her best, presented the strongest arguments possible, but it had not been enough. The dragons cared about law, not about circumstances. They had built their civilization on order and rules, and humanity had broken those rules. That evening, Helen could not sleep. She walked through the human delegation's quarters aboard their diplomatic vessel, a ship that orbited the station where the tribunal was held. Eventually, she found herself on the observation deck, staring out at the alien stars. Gregory stood there already, hands in his pockets, looking out at the same view. He did not turn when Helen approached, but he spoke quietly. "Beautiful, are they not? The stars. We always thought they would save us. Instead, they might trap us. Why are you here?" Helen asked. The question came out more harshly than she intended. "I do not understand. You hold no rank. You represent no government office. Yet Earth Command insisted you come. Why?" Gregory smiled slightly. It was a sad smile, carrying weight Helen could not identify. "Because some secrets cannot stay buried forever," he said. "Because sometimes the truth matters more than orders." "What truth?" Helen asked. Gregory turned to look at her. His blue eyes, faded with age, still held something sharp and clear underneath. "Tomorrow," he said. "Tomorrow you will understand. Tonight try to rest. Whatever happens, humanity's story is not over yet." He walked away, leaving Helen alone with the stars and her confusion. She watched him go, this mysterious old man who spoke in riddles. Tomorrow, he had said. Tomorrow she would understand. Morning came without sun. The station where the tribunal was held orbited a gas giant, and the light that filtered through came tinted with orange and purple from the planet's atmosphere. Helen stood in front of a mirror in her quarters, adjusting her uniform one final time. Her hands shook slightly. She forced them to be still. The human delegation gathered in silence and made their way back to the tribunal chamber. The vast black stone room felt even more oppressive today. The watching aliens filled the galleries again, even more than yesterday. Word had spread that the verdict would come today. Everyone wanted to see what judgment the dragons would pass on humanity. The dragon judges entered through their massive doorways. Their scales caught the strange light and threw it back in patterns that hurt to look at directly. They settled onto their thrones with a weight that seemed to make the entire chamber vibrate. Korath, the largest and most ancient, spread his wings briefly before folding them again. The gesture felt like a warning. "We have considered the evidence," Korath said. His voice filled every corner of the chamber. "We have weighed humanity's arguments. Before we deliver our verdict, we will hear final statements. Commander Burke, you may speak." Helen had prepared another speech, but standing in that moment, looking up at the dragon who would decide humanity's fate, the prepared words felt hollow. Instead, she spoke from her heart. "Sovereign Korath, honored judges," she began, "I cannot change what humanity has done. I cannot erase our mistakes or undo our violations of your laws. But I ask you to see us not as criminals, but as a young species trying to survive in a galaxy we barely understand." She gestured to the other humans standing with her. "We are explorers. We are dreamers. For thousands of years, humans looked at the stars and wondered what existed beyond our world. We created myths and stories about beings who might live among those distant lights. When we finally developed the technology to reach them, it felt like the greatest achievement of our existence." Helen's voice grew stronger. "Yes, we made mistakes. Yes, we crossed boundaries we should not have crossed. But we did it with hope in our hearts. We did it believing that somewhere out there among the infinite stars, there must be room for humanity. Room for our children. Room for our dreams." She looked directly at Korath. "You speak of order and law. I understand their importance. Without rules, chaos comes. Without boundaries, conflict follows. But law without mercy is just tyranny. Rules without understanding are just chains. I ask you not to abandon your principles, but to temper them with compassion." Helen took a breath. "If you confine us to Earth for 200 years, you will not be punishing criminals. You will be crushing the spirit of an entire species. You will be telling billions of humans that their dreams do not matter, that their struggles do not count, that in this vast galaxy there is no place for them." She spread her hands. "We can follow your laws. We can learn your rules. We can become part of the galactic community. But only if you give us the chance. Only if you judge us not by what we have done wrong, but by what we might do right if given the opportunity." Helen stepped back. She had said everything she could. Now came only waiting. Korath's golden eyes remained fixed on her for a long moment. Then he turned his massive head to consult with the other judges. They spoke in their own language, a sound like rocks sliding down mountains mixed with wind through canyons. The watching aliens in the galleries remained silent, but Helen could feel their attention like a physical weight. The dragons finished their discussion. Korath rose from his throne, standing to his full terrible height. Helen's breath caught. This was the moment. "We have heard humanity's defense," Korath said. "We acknowledge the difficult circumstances facing your species. We recognize that you are young in the ways of galactic civilization. These factors have been considered." He paused. The silence stretched. "However," Korath continued, and Helen's heart sank at that single word, "circumstances do not override law. Difficulty does not excuse violation. Every species in this gallery has faced challenges. Many have overcome worse trials than humanity currently endures. They did so while respecting the rules that govern civilized space." The dragon's wings spread slightly, a gesture Helen had learned meant emphasis. "If we allow humanity to go unpunished, we set a precedent. Other species will claim similar excuses. They will say their needs justify breaking boundaries. The order we have maintained for 10,000 years will begin to crumble." Helen felt tears threatening. She forced them back. She would not cry in front of these judges. She would not give them that. "Therefore," Korath said, "this tribunal finds humanity guilty of violating galactic boundary laws. The sentence is containment. All human vessels currently beyond the Sol system will be recalled immediately. No human ship shall be permitted to leave Earth's gravitational influence for a period of 200 standard years." The words fell like hammers. 200 years. Not the lifetime of anyone in this room, but the lifetime of everyone they knew and loved. Humanity would be trapped, locked in their own system, watching from a distance as the galaxy moved on without them. Monitoring stations will be established at the edges of your system, Korath continued. Any attempt to violate this containment will result in the immediate destruction of the vessel and an extension of the sentence. This is our judgment. This is our verdict. The human delegation stood frozen. One of the diplomats made a sound like a sob. Another slammed his fist against his leg in helpless rage. Helen felt hollow, as if something vital had been carved out of her chest. The watching aliens in the galleries began to react. Some seemed pleased, nodding or making sounds of approval in their various ways. Others appeared sympathetic, but none spoke out. None challenged the dragon's verdict. No one in the galaxy challenged the dragons. Korath began to sit back down, the matter apparently settled. The other judges relaxed on their thrones. It was over. Humanity had been judged and found wanting. Then something happened that no one expected. Gregory Walsh stood up. The old man rose slowly from where he had been sitting quietly among the delegation. Every eye in the chamber turned to him. Korath, halfway to his seat, froze. His golden eyes locked onto Gregory with sudden, sharp attention. "What is this?" Korath's voice carried a dangerous edge. "The verdict has been delivered. The judgment is final." Gregory stood straight despite his age. His weathered face showed no fear, only a calm determination. "Sovereign Korath," he said, and his voice, though old, carried clearly through the chamber. "I request the right of testimony under the ancient protocols. I have evidence that bears upon this judgment." A ripple of shock ran through the chamber. The ancient protocols. Helen had read about them in her preparation, but they were rarely invoked. Almost never. They dated back to the founding of the Galactic Tribunal itself, created by the first dragon judges as a safeguard against injustice. Under the ancient protocols, any being could present evidence even after a verdict was pronounced, but only if that evidence related to fundamental questions of law, precedent, or the character of the accused, and the penalty for invoking the protocols falsely, for wasting the tribunal's time, was severe. Korath's expression shifted into something unreadable. The other dragon judges stirred on their thrones, speaking to each other in low voices. The watching aliens leaned forward, suddenly more interested than they had been moments before. "You understand what you invoke, human?" Korath asked. "The ancient protocols are not a tool for delay or for last desperate arguments. They are sacred to this tribunal. If your evidence does not meet the requirements, you will face punishment." "I understand," Gregory said calmly. Korath studied him for a long moment. Helen found herself holding her breath. What was the old man doing? What evidence could he possibly have that would matter now? The verdict had been delivered. Humanity was already condemned. Finally, Korath spoke. "Very well. The ancient protocols are invoked. You may present your evidence. But know that I will judge its relevance harshly. If you waste this court's time, there will be consequences not just for you, but for all of humanity." Gregory nodded. "I accept these terms." He walked forward slowly, his steps measured and deliberate. He moved toward the center of the chamber floor, the same place where Helen had stood to give her defense. But where Helen had shown passion and emotion, Gregory showed only quiet purpose. From his pocket, he withdrew a small data chip. It looked insignificant in his aged hand, just a piece of technology no larger than a fingernail. But the way Gregory held it suggested it contained something important, something that had waited a long time to be revealed. "What I am about to show you," Gregory said, "happened 53 years ago. It was classified by Earth governments and buried so deep that most humans do not know it occurred. I was ordered never to speak of it. My crew was ordered to take this secret to their graves." He looked up at Korath. "But some things are more important than orders. Some truths need to be told, even when powerful people want them hidden. What happened 53 years ago matters to this judgment. It matters to understanding who humans really are." Gregory inserted the data chip into a holographic projector. An image materialized in the air above him, large enough for everyone in the chamber to see clearly. It showed a younger Grey. The holographic recording expanded to fill the center of the chamber. Everyone watched as the scene unfolded, pulled 53 years back in time to witness something that had been hidden from history. The image showed the bridge of the SS Endeavour. It was cramped and basic compared to modern starships. Exposed wiring ran along the ceiling. The control panels were covered in physical switches and buttons rather than holographic interfaces. 6 crew members worked at their stations, Young men and women in their 20s focused on their instruments. The younger Gregory sat in the captain's chair. He looked so different from the old man standing in the tribunal. His face was unlined, his shoulders broader, but his eyes held the same calm steadiness they carried now. "Captain," a woman's voice said from the communication station, "I am picking up something strange. It is not from any human source." The recording showed a red-haired woman named Lisa Blake turning in her seat. Her hands moved over her controls with quick efficiency. "It is a distress signal, but the pattern is wrong. The frequency is wrong. Captain, I do not think this is human." The younger Gregory leaned forward. "Can you get a fix on the location?" "Working on it," Lisa replied. "Got it. Bearing 273 Mark 8. Distance approximately 40,000 kilometers. The signal is weak and breaking up." Another crew member spoke up, a man with dark skin and nervous eyes. "Captain, our mission parameters do not include investigating unknown signals. We are supposed to finish mapping the belt and return home." The younger Gregory nodded slowly. "You are right, Danny, that is what we are supposed to do." He paused, staring at his own displays. But someone is out there. Someone is in trouble. A tense silence filled the recorded bridge. Helen, watching from 53 years in the future, understood the weight of that moment. These were humans from 1972, using their calendar. Earth had barely reached the moon. The idea of alien life was still theoretical. These young crew members had no protocol for this situation, no training, no guidance. "Plot an intercept course," the younger Gregory ordered. "Lisa, keep trying to make sense of that signal. Everyone else, stay sharp. We do not know what we are heading into." The holographic recording shifted perspective, showing the Endeavour changing course. The small ship rotated on its axis, its primitive engines burning as it accelerated toward the distress signal. Time seemed to compress in the recording, jumping forward in quick intervals. Then they saw it. The alien vessel appeared on their screens first, then came into visual range. The watching dragons in the tribunal chamber made sounds of recognition. It was indeed a Draconis ship, an older model but still recognizable. The vessel was dying. Entire sections were torn open. Debris floated around it in a spreading cloud. Small fires burned in compartments where oxygen still remained. The ship tumbled slowly, spinning without control. "What could do that?" Lisa whispered in the recording. Her voice carried shock and fear. "Pirates," one of the other crew members said. "My brother works salvage in the belt. He has seen ships torn up like this. Pirates hit them, took what they wanted, left them to die." The younger Gregory stood from his chair. "Life signs. Tell me you can detect life signs." A man at the science station worked frantically over his instruments. "Trying, sir. The interference from the fires is making it difficult." "Wait, yes. I have got something. 3 life forms. Their biology is nothing like ours, but they are definitely alive." Barely. The bridge fell silent again. Then Danny, the nervous crew member, spoke carefully. "Captain, we have no idea what those beings are. They could be dangerous. They could be hostile. We do not have weapons. We barely have enough supplies for ourselves." "I know," the younger Gregory said. "And if we try a rescue, we might damage the Endeavour," Danny continued. "We might not make it home ourselves. Sir, I am not saying we should leave them, but we need to think about this carefully." The younger Gregory turned to look at his crew. His face showed the weight of command, the burden of making a decision that could cost lives. "You are all right," he said. "This is dangerous. This is risky. We might not survive. And I will not order anyone to do something they believe is wrong." He looked at each crew member in turn. "So I am asking, not ordering. Do we try to save them?" One by one, the crew members answered. Some took longer than others. Some showed more fear, but eventually all 6 of them nodded. All 6 agreed. "Then let us bring them home," the younger Gregory said. The recording showed what happened next in painful detail. The Endeavour approached the damaged dragon ship carefully. Gregory's crew had no way to communicate with whoever was inside. They had no translation protocols, no understanding of Draconis technology. They were working blind, making guesses, hoping they did not make fatal mistakes. Lisa volunteered to cross the space between the ships. She put on a bulky EVA suit, the kind with limited air supply and even more limited mobility. The other crew members watched through cameras as she floated across the void, carrying magnetic clamps and rescue cables. The watching tribunal saw her reach the dragon ship's hull. saw her find a way inside through one of the torn sections. The camera feed grew grainy as she entered, interference from the damaged system scrambling the signal. For long minutes, the Endeavour crew waited. They listened to Lisa's breathing over the communications link. They heard her moving through the alien ship, her voice describing what she saw in hushed, awed tones. "It is beautiful," Lisa said. "Even damaged, even dying. The ship is more advanced than anything Earth has built. The walls seem alive. The controls are unlike anything I have ever seen. I am moving toward the life signs now." More time passed. Then Lisa's voice came back, tight with emotion. "I found them." "Oh God, Captain. I found them. What do you see?" the younger Gregory asked. "Dragons," Lisa said. "They look like dragons. From our old stories, but real. Covered in scales, wings, 3 of them. 2 adults and 1 smaller. A child, maybe. They are injured. They are trapped. And Captain, they are terrified." The holographic recording showed what Lisa's camera captured. Through the distortion and static, the watching tribunal saw 3 dragons. 2 were warriors in damaged armor. The third was small, perhaps 11 or 12 years old by dragon reckoning. All 3 were bleeding. All 3 struggled to breathe. Korath, sitting on his throne in the present, leaned forward. His massive form trembled slightly. Helen glanced at him and saw something in the dragon's golden eyes that might have been recognition, might have been memory. The recording continued. Lisa worked to free the trapped dragons. It took hours. The Endeavour crew talked her through jury-rigging alien equipment with human tools. They helped her set up temporary life support, sharing the ship's remaining oxygen with the dragons even though it meant less for themselves. Finally, Lisa managed to create a path. The dragons, weak and barely conscious, allowed her to guide them through the damaged ship. They had no reason to trust this strange soft creature in its primitive suit, but they were dying and Lisa was trying to help. Sometimes survival meant trusting strangers. The recording showed the dragons being brought aboard the Endeavour. The human crew had cleared their small cargo hold, converting it into a makeshift medical bay. They rigged life support systems using spare parts and determination. They worked through the night by Earth's reckoning, taking turns monitoring their unexpected guests, adjusting equipment as they learned more about dragon physiology. One of the older dragons, a guardian warrior with silver-blue scales, died on the 2nd day. The humans buried him in space with what ceremony they could manage, not knowing his customs but doing their best to show respect. The other adult dragon and the young one survived. Slowly, painfully, the humans and dragons learned to communicate. They started with mathematics, universal language of the cosmos, then physics, then basic concepts. Over 3 weeks, as the Endeavour limped back toward Earth, a crude translation system developed. The recording showed conversations between the younger Gregory and the adult dragon. She called herself Nethris. She was a teacher, responsible for training young dragons in the ways of space and combat. The small dragon was one of her students, sent on a routine training mission that had gone catastrophically wrong when pirates attacked. "Why do you help us?" Nethris asked in the recording, her translated words appearing as text for those who could not understand the sounds she made. The younger Gregory considered the question. "Because you needed help," he finally said. "Is that not enough?" "Most species would not risk themselves for strangers," Nethris replied. "Especially not for Draconis. We are judges. We are enforcers. Many fear us. Some hate us. Few would save us if given the choice to let us die. Then most species are not human," the younger Gregory said. But the recording showed one more event, one moment that made even the watching aliens in the tribunal galleries gasp or react in their various ways. On the 6th day of the journey home, the Endeavour's life support began to fail. The systems were never designed to support 9 beings, especially not 3 dragons with their different atmospheric needs. The ship's oxygen recyclers were breaking down faster than the crew could repair them. The crew gathered on the bridge. Their faces showed the weight of the situation. They had enough oxygen for maybe 12 more hours yet. The chamber erupted. Dragons rose from their thrones, their massive forms moving with sudden energy. The watching aliens made sounds of shock and confusion in a dozen different languages. The human delegation stared at Gregory with mouths open, unable to process what they had just witnessed. But Helen watched Korath. The massive red and gold dragon sat absolutely frozen on his throne, His wings were spread slightly, locked in position. His golden eyes were fixed on the holographic image that still showed Marcus Kent's peaceful face in death. Korath's entire body trembled. "That is impossible," one of the other dragon judges said. Her scales were deep purple and her voice carried confusion. The records show that Korath was rescued by a Talaran merchant vessel. The humans of that era had barely left their own planet. They could not have possessed the technology for deep space travel. "The records were changed," Gregory said. He spoke calmly despite the chaos around him. Both governments agreed to falsify the truth. The Draconis Imperium did not want it known that one of their training vessels had been destroyed by pirates. It would have shown weakness. Earth did not want it known that we had reached further than anyone realized. It would have made us a target. He pulled another data chip from his pocket. "I have the original reports here. The real logs from the Endeavor. Medical records of the dragons we rescued. Even Nethris's own testimony before she returned to her people. All of it was classified. All of it was buried. The Talaran Confederation agreed to take credit because it improved their diplomatic standing. Everyone benefited from the lie except the truth." Gregory's weathered face showed anger now, the first strong emotion Helen had seen from him. "My crew was ordered to stay silent. We were told it was for Earth's protection. Marcus Kent's parents were told their son died in a training accident. Lisa Blake was never allowed to speak about the bravest thing she ever did. The rest of us lived with the secret, watching history forget what really happened." He looked around the chamber. "But I am old now. I have lived with this silence for 53 years, and today, when I heard that humanity would be locked away for 200 years, I decided that some things are more important than following orders. My crew deserved to have their story told. Marcus deserved to be remembered for what he really did." All eyes turned to Korath. The massive dragon still had not moved. His golden eyes remained fixed on the frozen hologram. Long moments passed. The other judges waited. The watching aliens waited. Everyone in the chamber held their breath. Finally, Korath's voice emerged. It was quiet, almost a whisper, but it filled the chamber anyway. "I remember." Those two words seemed to break something inside the dragon. His wings folded slowly against his back. His head lowered slightly. "I remember the humans. I remember their strange small ship with its primitive engines. I remember their soft faces looking at me with concern. I remember not understanding why they were helping us." Korath's gaze moved to Gregory. "I remember you. You sat with me when I was frightened. You showed me images of Earth. You tried to teach me words in your language. You were young then. I was just a hatchling. We could barely communicate, but you tried." The dragon's voice grew thicker. "I remember the one who stayed awake. Marcus. He told me jokes I did not understand. He showed me how to operate the ship's basic controls to distract me from the pain. He gave me his food when I was hungry. And at the end, when the air grew thin, he gave me his oxygen mask." Korath closed his eyes. "I woke up in a medical facility. Nethris told me we had been rescued. She said a merchant ship found us and brought us to safety. I wanted to thank the humans who saved us, but she said they had already left, that we would probably never see them again." He opened his eyes again, and they shimmered with something that might have been tears. "I spent years trying to find that merchant ship. I wanted to thank them properly, to give them the honors they deserved, but the records led nowhere. The Talaran vessel did not exist. I thought perhaps my memories were confused from the trauma, that I had imagined the humans, or mixed them up with the Talarans." The other dragon judges were silent now. The purple-scaled one who had spoken before bowed her head. Even the watching aliens seemed affected by the emotion in Korath's voice. "But I did not imagine it," Korath continued. "It was real. You were real, and the one who died for me, Marcus Kent, he was real too." The dragon's voice broke slightly. "A human I never knew gave his life so I could breathe. He was 20 years old. He had his whole life ahead of him, and he chose to die so an alien child could live." Gregory nodded slowly. "He did. And he is not the only human who has made such choices. We do it all the time. Firefighters who run into burning buildings to save strangers. Soldiers who throw themselves on explosives to protect their friends. Parents who give up everything for their children. It is what makes us human. We help, even when it costs us. Even when no one will ever know." He gestured to the other humans in the delegation. "You judged us for breaking your laws. You decided we were lawless and dangerous. But laws are not the only measure of a species. Character matters. Compassion matters. The willingness to sacrifice for others, that matters too. Gregory's voice grew stronger. Yes, humanity violated boundaries. Yes, we made mistakes, but we did not do it with cruelty or malice. We did it while trying to save our own people. Just like we tried to save yours 53 years ago. We are not perfect. We are not angels. But we are not monsters either. The old man looked directly at Korath. You owe us nothing. Marcus did not save you so humanity could claim a favor. He did it because it was right. Because you were a child in danger and he could help. That is enough. Gregory's shoulders sagged slightly as if a great weight was being lifted. But I could not let you condemn my species without knowing the truth. I could not let humanity be judged only by our worst moments when our best moments have been hidden away. So I broke my oath of silence. I revealed classified information. I violated orders that stood for 5 decades. He spread his hands. Do with me what you will, but judge humanity fairly. Judge us not just by the laws we broke, but by the lives we saved. By the sacrifices we made. By the human who gave up his oxygen so a dragon child could breathe. Silence fell over the chamber again. Gregory stood alone in the center of the floor, an old man who had carried a secret for most of his life and finally let it go. He looked tired but also relieved, as if speaking the truth had lifted years from his shoulders. Helen found herself moving forward without consciously deciding to. She came to stand beside Gregory, facing the dragon judges together. He speaks for all of us, she said. We are not asking you to ignore our violations. We are asking you to see the whole truth, to judge us completely, not partially. One by one, the other humans in the delegation joined them. They formed a line, standing together, facing whatever judgment would come. Korath watched them. The massive dragon's expression was unreadable. Around the chamber, the other judges and the watching aliens waited to see what would happen next. Finally, Korath spoke. This testimony has invoked the ancient protocols. Evidence has been presented that bears upon the character of humanity and the nature of justice itself. Under these protocols, this tribunal must reconsider its verdict. He turned to the other dragon judges. We will adjourn again. We must discuss what has been revealed. This changes everything. How does it change anything? One of the judges asked. His scales were orange and black like flames. Humanity still broke the laws. This rescue, while noble, does not erase their violations. Does it not? Korath replied. Justice is not simply about punishment. It is about truth, about seeing clearly. We judged humanity based on incomplete information. Now we have more information. We must judge again or we are not truly judges at all. The orange-scaled dragon started to argue, but Korath cut him off. I invoke my right as sovereign judge. We will reconvene. We will consider this new evidence, and we will deliver a new verdict based on complete truth, not partial facts. He looked back at Gregory. You took a great risk, human. Violating your government's orders. Revealing classified information. The consequences for you personally may be severe. I know, Gregory said. It was worth it. Why? Korath asked. Why risk everything now? You kept this secret for 53 years. You could have kept it forever. You could have let humanity face judgment without ever speaking. Why break your silence today? Gregory was quiet for a moment. When he spoke, his voice was soft but clear. Because Marcus Kent died to save a child. Not to earn gratitude. Not to gain advantage. But simply because it was right. And letting his sacrifice be forgotten. Letting it stay hidden while humanity was condemned. That would have dishonored everything he stood for. The old man's eyes met Korath's. You asked me why I broke my silence. Because some things are more important than orders. Some truths matter more than secrets. And because when you judge humanity, you deserve to know what we are capable of at our best, not just what we have done at our worst. Korath stared at Gregory for a long time. Then slowly, the massive dragon lowered his head in what looked like a bow. It was a gesture of respect, of acknowledgement. Around the chamber, gasps echoed. A dragon judge bowing to a human. No one had ever seen such a thing. The hours that followed felt like years. The human delegation was escorted to a waiting chamber. A room with walls of smooth gray stone and furniture clearly not designed for human proportions. Gregory sat in a chair that was too large for him, looking small and frail. The other humans gathered nearby, speaking in hushed voices. Helen stood by the window, looking out at the gas giant that dominated the view. Its orange and purple bands swirled in patterns that never repeated. Beautiful and alien like everything in this place, she tried not to think about what might be happening in the deliberation chamber where the dragon judges gathered. "Commander," one of the diplomats said. His name was Peter, and he looked young enough to be Helen's son. "What do you think they will decide?" "I do not know," Helen admitted. "I have never heard of anything like this. The ancient protocols being invoked, a dragon judge recognizing he was part of the evidence. This is completely without precedent, but it has to help, right?" Peter pressed. "They cannot condemn us now. Not after learning what we did, what Marcus Kent did." Helen wished she could give him certainty. But she had been in enough negotiations, enough tense political situations, to know that nothing was guaranteed. "Laws still exist," she said carefully. "We still broke them. Even the most sympathetic judge must balance compassion with order." Lisa Blake sat in another chair, her hands folded in her lap. She was 74 years old now, her red hair long since gone white. She had been silent since Gregory's testimony, her face unreadable. Now she spoke for the first time. "I should have told the truth years ago," Lisa said. Her voice was quiet but steady. "We all should have. We let them classify it. We let them hide what Marcus did. We were cowards. You followed orders," Helen said. "That does not make you cowards, does it not?" Lisa looked up and her eyes held pain. "We were told to stay silent for Earth's protection, but we stayed silent for ourselves too. It was easier. Keeping the secret meant no questions, no attention, no complications. We let convenience and comfort bury the truth." Gregory spoke from his chair.
"Do not blame yourself, Lisa. I could have spoken decades ago."
"I was the captain. The responsibility was mine." "We all carried it," another voice said. Danny, the nervous crew member from the recording, sat against the wall. He was 75 now, his dark skin creased with age. "We all made the choice every day for 53 years. Every day we woke up and decided to keep quiet. Every day we let Marcus stay forgotten." A heavy silence fell. Helen realized she was seeing something private, something these old crew members had carried alone for most of their lives. Guilt and shame and the weight of a secret that had grown heavier with each passing year. "He would have understood," Gregory finally said. "Marcus. He was young, but he was wise in his own way. He understood that sometimes the right choice is not the easy choice, that sometimes doing good means doing it silently, without recognition." "But he deserved recognition," Lisa said fiercely. "He deserved the whole galaxy knowing what he did. Not as a propaganda tool or a political advantage, but as truth, as history. He deserved that. And now he has it," Gregory replied. "Whatever happens with the verdict, Marcus will be remembered. His name is spoken among the stars." That is something. The door opened. A dragon entered. Smaller than the judges, but still massive by human standards. Its scales were a deep blue, almost black. It spoke in its own language, then activated a translation device that rendered the words into English. "The tribunal reconvenes in 1 hour. Your presence is required." The dragon departed without waiting for a response. The humans looked at each other. An hour, 60 minutes until they learned humanity's fate. Helen checked her appearance in the reflective surface of the window. She straightened her uniform, adjusted her insignia. The familiar ritual helped calm her nerves. Around her, the other humans did the same, each finding their own way to prepare for what came next. Gregory stood slowly. Lisa moved to help him, but he waved her away gently. "I can manage," he said with a slight smile. "I am old, not broken." They made their way back to the tribunal chamber. The vast black stone room felt different now. The shadows seemed less oppressive. The watching aliens in the galleries looked at the humans differently, with curiosity rather than judgment. Some even nodded respectfully as the human delegation entered. The dragon judges were already seated on their thrones. All of them were present, their massive forms imposing and terrible and beautiful. Korath sat in the center, his red and gold scales catching the strange light. His expression was unreadable. Helen and the others took their positions on the chamber floor. Gregory stood at the front and Helen positioned herself beside him. Whatever came next, they would face it together. Korath rose from his throne. The chamber fell silent immediately. Every eye, human and alien alike, focused on the massive dragon. "We have deliberated," Korath said. His voice filled the chamber as it always did, but something in it sounded different. Less harsh, less distant. What has been revealed today has forced us to reconsider not just humanity's violations, but the very nature of justice itself. He paused, and in that pause, Helen's heart hammered against her ribs. This was it, the moment that would determine everything. The facts are not in dispute, Korath continued. Humanity violated galactic boundary laws. They established colonies in neutral zones without authorization. They extracted resources from protected areas. These violations occurred repeatedly and without sanction. Under our laws, such behavior demands punishment. Helen felt her hope beginning to crumble. This sounded like the same verdict as before. However, Korath said, and that single word changed everything. Law without context is not justice. It is simply power wearing the mask of fairness. And we have learned today that context matters greatly. The dragon's golden eyes swept across the chamber. 53 years ago, 6 humans in a primitive vessel encountered 3 dying draconis. They had every reason to ignore the distress signal. They were young and inexperienced. Their ship was barely capable of the rescue attempt. They faced the unknown with no weapons, no backup, no guarantee of survival. Korath's voice grew stronger. They chose to help anyway. Not for reward, not for recognition, but simply because it was the right thing to do. One of them, Marcus Kent, gave his life to save a dragon child. He did it knowing he would never be thanked. Knowing his sacrifice would be classified and forgotten, he did it anyway. The chamber remained silent, but the quality of the silence had changed. It was no longer tense. It was expectant. This tribunal has judged many species over 10,000 years, Korath said. We have seen the best and worst that civilized space has to offer. We have witnessed acts of stunning cruelty and remarkable compassion. But rarely have we seen both in the same species. Rarely have we been forced to weigh genuine violations against genuine heroism. He looked directly at Gregory. You asked us to judge humanity fairly, to see the whole truth. We have done so. And what we have seen has challenged our understanding of justice itself. Korath spread his wings, the gesture commanding absolute attention. Therefore, this tribunal delivers the following verdict. Humanity is guilty of violating galactic boundary laws. This guilt is acknowledged and recorded. However, the sentence is amended. Helen held her breath. Humanity will not be confined to Earth, Korath declared. Instead, they will be granted provisional membership in the galactic community. They will be assigned mentors from established species, who will teach them the complex web of laws and treaties that govern civilized space. They will be monitored to ensure compliance with proper protocols. The dragon's voice took on a formal tone. Furthermore, humanity will face the following specific penalties. All existing colonies in violation of boundary laws must be evacuated or must petition the proper authorities for legitimization. A fine of resources will be assessed to compensate for unauthorized extraction from protected areas. Human vessels will be restricted from certain sensitive zones until proper training and certification are completed. He paused. These penalties are significant. They will be inconvenient and costly, but they are not crippling. They are corrective rather than punitive. Their purpose is to integrate humanity into the galactic community, not to exclude them from it. Helen felt tears starting in her eyes. Not confined, not locked away. Given a chance. Additionally, Korath continued, this tribunal recognizes that context and character must factor into judgment. What Marcus Kent did 53 years ago, what the crew of the Endeavor achieved, speaks to humanity's capacity for compassion and sacrifice. These qualities matter. They do not erase violations, but they inform our understanding of who humanity is and what they might become. The dragon judge turned to address the watching aliens in the galleries. Let this verdict stand as precedent. Law must be enforced, but justice must be tempered with wisdom. We judge not only actions, but the full measure of a species. We consider not only what they have done wrong, but what they have done right. This is the way of true judgment. Korath's gaze returned to the humans. Commander Burke, do you accept these terms on behalf of humanity? Helen stepped forward. Her voice was steady despite the emotion threatening to overwhelm her. We do, Sovereign Korath.
We accept with...
The diplomatic vessel carrying the human delegation prepared to depart from the tribunal station. Helen stood in the common area, reviewing the official documents that had been transmitted from the Draconis Imperium. Pages and pages of protocols, restrictions, guidelines for humanity's provisional membership in the galactic community. It was overwhelming. but it was also hope written in legal language. Around her, the other delegates were already making calls back to Earth. Voices overlapped, some crying, some laughing, all sharing the news. They had been prepared to return home with the worst possible news. Instead, they were returning with a future. Gregory sat in a chair by the viewport watching the station recede into the distance. He had been quiet since the verdict, turning inward in a way that worried Helen. She finished her immediate duties and went to sit beside him. "How are you feeling?" she asked. Gregory was silent for a long moment. Then he said, "Strange. I carried that secret for so long that it became part of me, like a weight I learned to live with. Now it is gone and I feel lighter but also a little lost. Does that make sense?" "It does," Helen replied. "You lived most of your life with that burden. It will take time to adjust." "I keep thinking about Earth Command," Gregory said, "about the orders I violated, about the classified material I revealed. The tribunal gave me an honor, but my own government might see things differently." Helen had been thinking the same thing. "I will speak on your behalf," she said. "I will make sure they understand what you did and why. You saved humanity. They cannot punish you for that, cannot they?" Gregory smiled sadly. "Governments do not like when their secrets are exposed, even for good reasons. Especially for good reasons. Those secrets usually exist to protect something or someone important. Then they will have to answer for why they kept it secret in the first place," Helen said firmly. "Why they let Marcus Kent's sacrifice be forgotten. Why they classified heroism and buried the truth. The whole galaxy knows now. Earth cannot put that back in the box." Gregory nodded slowly. "Perhaps you are right. Perhaps the truth, once free, has its own protection." Lisa Blake approached them. She had been resting since the verdict, exhausted by the emotional toll of the day. Now she looked steadier, more composed. "May I join you?" she asked. "Of course," Gregory said, gesturing to another chair. Lisa sat down with a sigh. "I have been thinking about Marcus," she said. "About all of us, really. About who we were back then. We were so young, so idealistic. We truly believed we could explore the stars and make things better." "We did make things better," Gregory said. "We saved 3 lives. We did," Lisa agreed. "But then we let that act be buried. We let politicians and bureaucrats decide that the truth was too complicated, too dangerous to share, and we went along with it. For 53 years we went along with it." She looked at both of them. "I am not angry with you for finally speaking up, Gregory. I am angry with myself for not doing it sooner. For not having your courage decades ago. You kept your word," Gregory said. "You followed orders. There is honor in that too, is there?" Lisa asked. "Or is there just obedience? I have spent 53 years wondering about the difference." Danny joined them then, moving slowly on legs that had grown stiff with age. "Are we having a reunion?" he asked with a slight smile. "The 3 survivors of the Endeavor together again." "Feels like we should have done this more often," Lisa said, "instead of living separate lives pretending that what we did together never happened." "We were ordered not to discuss it," Danny pointed out. "Even among ourselves. They were very clear about that." "I know," Lisa said, "but we could have found ways. We could have stayed connected. Instead, we drifted apart, and the secret became easier to keep because we were not looking at each other every day." Not being reminded, Gregory nodded. "You're right. We let the classification isolate us from each other. That was a mistake, one of many I made." "Stop that," Lisa said sharply. "Stop taking all the blame. We all made choices. We all lived with them. You are not responsible for everything, Gregory." He smiled at her fierce tone. "You always were the bravest of us, Lisa, even more than Marcus in some ways. He acted bravely once in a moment of crisis. You have been brave every day just by living with what we lost." Lisa's eyes grew wet. "I dream about him sometimes. Marcus, still young and laughing, still making his terrible jokes. In my dreams, he did not die. He came home with us. He got to see Earth grow into the stars. He got to have a life." "He did have a life," Danny said quietly. "It was short, but it meant something. It meant everything, as it turns out. His choice 53 years ago changed the verdict today. Changed humanity's future. That is a life well lived, even if it was too brief." They sat together in silence, 3 old humans who had shared something profound when they were young, who had carried it separately for decades, who were now finally able to acknowledge it together. Elsewhere on the ship, Peter, the young diplomat, found Helen. "Commander, We are getting reports from Earth. News services have picked up the story. The tribunal's proceedings were broadcast to observer governments, and it has leaked to the public. Everyone knows about Marcus Kent now. About the Endeavor, Helen felt a chill. How is Earth responding? Mixed, Peter admitted. Some people are celebrating. They are calling Marcus a hero. Others are angry that the government kept it secret. There are protests outside government buildings demanding accountability. It is chaotic. What about Earth Command? Helen asked. What are they saying? Peter hesitated. They have issued a statement acknowledging the historical events, but declining to comment on the classification decisions. They say it was done for national security reasons that remain valid. Helen closed her eyes. Of course, the government would defend itself. Would justify the secret even now. Keep monitoring the situation, she told Peter, and prepare a full report for when we arrive home. We will need to move quickly to control the narrative. After Peter left, Helen returned to the viewport where Gregory, Lisa, and Danny still sat. They looked up as she approached. Earth knows, she said simply. The whole planet knows what you did. What Marcus did, and? Gregory asked. And it is complicated, Helen admitted. Some celebrate you. Others question why it was kept secret. The government is in defensive mode. Gregory nodded, unsurprised. That was always going to happen. Truth is messy. It disrupts comfortable lies. People do not like being disrupted. Are you worried? Helen asked. About myself? No. Gregory shook his head. I am 76 years old. Whatever punishment they want to impose, it cannot hurt me much at this point. I have lived a long life. I have kept my silence when ordered. Now I have spoken my truth. I am at peace with both. They might come after you legally, Helen warned. Prosecution for revealing classified information. They could make an example of you. Let them try, Lisa said fiercely. The whole galaxy just saw what humans are capable of. If Earth wants to prosecute the people who demonstrated that capability, who saved 3 dragons including the judge who later gave humanity a second chance, then let them explain that to the civilized species watching. Danny laughed, a sound of genuine amusement. You know what? Lisa is right. We have the moral high ground now. The entire galactic community is on our side. Earth can posture all it wants, but prosecuting us would make them look petty and vindictive. Helen smiled despite her concerns. These 3 old people who had carried a terrible secret for most of their lives were finally free. Finally able to speak openly about what they had done. No government could take that away from them now. The journey home took 3 days. During that time, the news from Earth continued to develop. Public opinion shifted as more details emerged. People tracked down Marcus Kent's family, now scattered across the planet. His younger sister, now an old woman herself, gave tearful interviews about the brother she had lost and the lies she had been told about his death. Social media exploded with discussions about government secrecy, about the ethics of classification, about what else might be hidden. But underlying all of it was a thread of pride. Humans had saved dragons. A human had died heroically. The galaxy knew about it now, and they thought better of humanity because of it. Various governments scrambled to respond. Some called for investigations into who had authorized the classification. Others defended the decision as necessary at the time. Politicians gave speeches claiming credit or deflecting blame. It was messy and loud and very human. Through it all, the story of Marcus Kent spread. Artists created memorials. Musicians wrote songs. Schools talked about teaching the incident in history classes. A 20-year-old who had died in space and been forgotten was becoming